As the crisis deepened and lengthened, notably in the European Union, we see that the employment impact has become more widespread, and it's been particularly tough on certain vulnerable groups, such as migrant workers. This has been particularly the case in Spain. We see that between 2009 and 2011, migrant workers actually accounted for close to 1/4 of the total employment or job destruction in Spain, whereas they account for less than half of that in total employment. The financial crisis, of course, was associated with a big housing bubble or construction sector boom as well. So here we note that many of the employment losses among migrant workers were also in the construction sector. This was particularly the case in Spain, where many of the migrant workers from Morocco, mostly low-skilled, were concentrated in the construction sector. They accounted for more than 1/3 of the employment losses in that sector in Spain between 2009 and 2011. I mean, the unique feature of this crisis, if you will, is that it is, of course, very much and continues to be global in nature. So migrant workers were stuck really between a rock and a hard place. They were faced with bleak job prospects in the destination country, but at the same time, with the crisis spreading and deepening elsewhere, of course, there were few or limited possibilities to return to their home country. But in the European Union, the crisis has continued, it's gotten worse, and this has left migrant workers with an even tougher situation today than at the beginning of the crisis. And so many migrant workers involuntarily move to informal work so they can help support families at home. Of course, they are faced with the double challenge that in many instances they needed to borrow or finance the original move to the European countries, if you will. So many of these migrants also owe money home and of course are thus forced into informal employment to try to make ends meet, to also pay back the money they've borrowed to migrate in the first place. The move to the informal sector also has important repercussions for skills and employment prospects going forward. So we know that someone who was in the construction sector for several years gained some skills in that sector, but now are moved to informal employment, basically trying to make ends meet. Eventually their skills will erode. And once and if there is a recovery or the situation improves at home, there's big questions about the reintegration of these migrant workers back into formal employment. Another important consequence of staying too long in informal employment as well is the fact that eventually these migrant workers also lose their official status in the country. And so this, of course, exacerbates the reintegration progress. Once, employment creation picks up again, they will have difficulty through formal channels finding the right work permits. These are migrant workers that during the boom phase contributed an important aspect of employment and skills to the booming economy. And I think moving forward with these workers facing such a difficult situation, it's really important that countries take responsibility for these workers and facilitate their reintegration into employment.